In many of our daily life situations, so you usually think of or speak about chance of winning a lottery, chance of maybe the present day situation. So many people are afraid of COVID. So chance of affected by COVID today or tomorrow. So what is the chance that you will be affected by COVID-19? Then, so if you are concerned with the weather, so what is the chance for rain today evening or tomorrow in Kochi? So in your place. So for a student writing the examination, you may be asking about chance of getting an A grade in the examination. So all these are actually some way of expressing this uncertainty. So chance can be expressed. Chance can be expressed in terms of probability. So probability is a measure of uncertainty. So chances are having the same meaning as probability. So but technically speaking, probability that is actually taken as the measure of uncertainty. So it is usually taken as something lying between 0 and 1. So if you are having an impossible event, then the probability is 0. If your event is sure to happen, then the probability 1. So between 0 and 1, you are having the degree of probability. Suppose it is equal to 0.8, that means you are having 80% surety. If it is 0.2, that means it is 20% surety. So there is no much probability for the possibility of for the happening of the event. So only 20% probability is there. So if 50% probability is there. So that way, so you can quantify the chance associated with uncertain events. So now we will be coming to a little more mathematical situations. That is, so for that actually, I will be considering the basic definitions, some basic definitions. The basic definitions. So usually, so always we say life is an experiment. Always a scientist is conducting experiments. So all of you, so all the audience, they are conducting some experiments. So as far as experiments are concerned, there are two types of experiments. Maybe random experiments, maybe deterministic experiment. So random experiment, as far as random experiments are concerned, the outcomes vary irregularly. So suppose you are going to a doctor, suppose you are suffering from fever, then certainly doctor will be giving you some medicines. It is not randomly chosen. So doctor will be giving some prescriptions which are suitable for curing that disease. So in that case, it is something which is our predetermined, you can say. So for a random experiment, the outcomes vary irregularly. So we cannot find any order. But for a deterministic experiment, the outcome is predetermined. Suppose you have this H2 plus O, hydrogen plus oxygen. So in a given proportion, that will certainly result in water. So that is a deterministic experiment. But for a random experiment, the outcomes vary irregularly. So outcome, what is actually outcome? Outcome is actually what we observe. So while conducting the experiment. So if you toss a coin, then the outcomes are head and tail, the two sides which you label as H and T. So in tossing a coin, so you have two outcomes. We cannot say whether head will come now, whether tail will come now. So these are the two possible outcomes. There are two outcomes. So only that much. Suppose you have two coins, and if two coins are tossed, the outcomes are HH, HT, TH, and TT. That means the first coin and second coin both shows head. The first coin shows head and the second coin shows tail. Or the first coin will show tail and the second will show head. And lastly say both may be showing tails. So there are four possible outcomes. So in tossing two coins, you have four possible outcomes. In tossing a single coin, you have only two possible outcomes. So similar is the case with the die tossing. Suppose you are having a single die with 6 bases, then there are 6 possible outcomes. Suppose you are concerned with the tossing of 2 dice. So in that case, so you are having 36 possible outcomes. 1, 1, 1, 2 up to 1, 6, 2, 1, 2, 2 up to 2, 6, etc. Lastly 6, 6. So 36 possible outcomes are there. So while tossing 2 dice, you cannot say which will happen. So whether 5, 6 will happen, whether 2, 2 will happen, whether 3, 1 will happen. So we cannot say. That is actually why there is uncertainty. So they are random. So if you observe a newborn baby, the baby may be a male or female. So that is actually what you can say. We cannot say, suppose the lady has entered the delivery room. So we may be expecting a male or a female. That is only what we can say. So if you observe the climate today, so the climate may be sunny, rainy, etc. So as far as these examples are concerned, there are some differences. So as far as head and tail are concerned, if it was a single coin, head and tail are somewhat 50 chance. So they are having equal chance. So in tossing a die, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they have equal chance. So if you are considering 2 coins tossing, then there are 4 possibilities we have mentioned. They have equal chance. But if you observe your delivery, and if you are observing the sex of the child, so male and female may be equiprobable, but may not be always. So if you consider the climate, so we cannot say sunny and rainy with equal probabilities. So there are situations where the outcomes are equiprobable. There are situations where the outcomes are not equiprobable. So that is actually the peculiarity. So now we will be coming to some of the classical definitions or some of the basic definitions or the approaches. So that will be more correct. So approaches to measure probability. The most elementary one or the first one in historical backgrounds, that is actually the classical or the mathematical approach. And the mathematical approach is due to Laplace, Simon Pierre Laplace. So here we assume that all outcomes are equally likely. Equally likely means equal chance, just like the coin tossing experiment, head and tail are equally likely, mutually exclusive. These are the only 2 possibilities. If head happens, then tail will not happen. So if tail happens, then head will. So that means mutually exclusive means only one can happen. Exhaustive means these are the 2 possible outcomes. The coin may not, will not stand on its edges. Suppose there is a chance, then that also to be considered. So equally likely, mutually exclusive, and exhaustiveness. These are the 3 conditions or 3 assumptions which we make. So while tossing a coin, we assume that head and tail are equally likely and mutually exclusive and exhaustive outcome. These are the only possible outcomes. Head and tail have somewhat equal chance. They are mutually exclusive. If one occurs, the other will not occur. So if these conditions are true, then probability of an event, a probability of an event A, that is defined as the ratio n of A, that is number of outcomes in A divided by the total number of outcomes. So NA, that is the number of outcomes favorable to A, and N, that is the total number of all possible outcomes. So in the coin tossing experiment, if you are having head and tail only, then the probability for head, that is equal to 1 out of 2. There are 2 possible outcomes, then the probability is 1 out of 2. Suppose you are considering a die tossing experiment, then there are 6 possible outcomes. So probability for the phase 2, that is actually 1 by 6. Probability that the phase is an even number. Even number means, so it may be 2, 4 or 6. So 3 possibilities are there. That is NA equal to 3 divided by the total number, that is 6, or 3 by 6, that is actually equal to 1 by 2. So that is how you find the probability, and you can see that this probability lies between 0 and 1. So that is actually a function which lies between 0 and 1. But we have to say, remember that all the assumptions may not be true always. So in the case of the rain situation, so what is the probability for rain tomorrow? That is not 0.5. So it may be rainy or sunny, we say, but it is not 1 by 2. So there is actually a difference. So it is not equally likely. So there are possibilities. So in such a situation, we cannot make use of the classical approach. That is actually a deficiency or a demerit. So that is just mathematical. So we have to remember, or we have to know the possible outcomes in advance. So that is not possible always. So in such a situation, you will be considering frequency approach. So frequency approach is due to von Mises. So this is actually a practical method which is in statistical in nature. So a practical method to compute probability. So here what we do is we will be repeating the experiment a number of times, say 100 times, say 500 times, say 1,000 times. So then count the number of trials which were favorable to A and denote it by NA. Then the relative frequency is RA equal to N of A divided by N. So relative frequency, that is actually the number of trials which are favorable to A divided by the total number of trials. So here we are not considering outcomes, we are considering favorable trials to that of the total number of trials actually. So if you repeat the experiment very large number of times, then we will be getting more accurate approximate value for PA. So if it is 100 times repetition and 1,000 times, certainly, so if you have repeated it 1,000 times, you will be getting a better estimate. So if you have repeated it 10,000 times, you'll be getting a more better or more accurate value for the probability of A. So that is it. So this actually gives you some practical way of finding the probability. So I shall give you some examples. So here also what you can say is probability of A that will lie between 0 and 1. Either sometimes no trial will be resulting in A. Then it is 0 divided by the total number, that is actually N. Or all the trials are resulting in a particular event. Then N divided by N, that is equal to 1. These are the two extremes. So here also probability lies between 0 and 1. So it agrees with the classical definition. Now we will be coming to a simple example. Suppose you are given a data. So here the data is actually regarding the deliveries, the males in a hospital. So the delivery of or the total number of births. So during the first week, there were 30 births, out of which 19 were boys. So if you just take the ratio, 19 out of 30, that is going to be 0.633. So after 4 weeks, you are observing. So by 4 weeks, so that means in a month, you have 116 births, totally 116 births, out of which 68 were boys. So the probability or the proportion is actually 0.586. Then if you are going to 13 months, 13 weeks, 26 weeks, 39 weeks, lastly they say 52 weeks. 52 weeks means 1 year. In 1 year, there were 1,237 births, total births. Out of that, 639 were boys. So 639 divided by 1,237, that is going to be 0.517. So what I can say is this value will be a more accurate value. So if you just consider that in terms of 1,000 births, so it is actually going to be 0.52. So this 0.517, that is more accurate value of the probability rather than just with say 13 weeks or 4 weeks. So within first week, if you just consider it was 0.63, but so your experience, you are actually observing this for the whole year. So after 52 weeks, you come out with the result out of 1,237 births. So you have 639 boys. So the ratio is actually 0.517. That is actually something which actually gives you a better estimate regarding the probability for male versus the number of births. So the total number of births. So if you repeat it for 2 years, then you will be getting a still better estimate. That is actually the peculiarity. So this way, so in our empirical situations, our practical situations, so we are making use of probability, we are computing probability this way actually. This is one of the ways. And this is actually based on some statistical principle known as the law of statistical regularity. This is an assurance. So as far as law of statistical regularity is considered, it actually means this law states that in spite of the irregular behavior in individual trials, there is a regularity that the relative frequencies converge to a fixed value. That relative frequency means that frequency ratio. That frequency ratio will converge to a fixed value. So as you increase the number of repetitions, if you repeat the experiment many times, infinitely many times, then they will actually converge to a fixed value. And that value is taken as the probability of the event. That is the frequency approach. So in the relative frequency approach, the limit of the relative frequencies as the number of trials increases, as the number of trials becomes very large, that is taken as the probability of the event. And this is assured by a statistical theorem known as strong law of large numbers. So in statistics, there are some such results. So in advanced probability, something related to central limit theorem, etc. So that is actually strong law of large numbers. Strong law of large numbers assures this, theoretically gives you the proof for this. And this is the basis of frequency approach. So that is how we will be finding the probability using relative frequency approach. So this actually received many criticism from mathematicians, from people, from researchers. And then actually a mathematician, a Russian mathematician called A.N. Kolmogorov come out with axiomatic approach. So he proposed some axioms, and it is usually known as the measure approach. So he will define it in terms of some measure function. So as far as Kolmogorov is concerned, any probability can be discussed in terms of 3 axioms. So these are the three axioms. So here PA, that is the measure satisfying the following axioms. One axiom is just probability of A, PA is always positive, cannot be negative. PA is always positive. That is the first axiom. The second axiom is actually probability for the whole sample space. So for the whole sample space, the probability is equal to 1. Or the complement of that, that is probability for the null event, that is 0. So probability for an impossible event is 0. So probability for a sure event is always equal to 1. Then the third axiom, that is the new one. So that is the probability for a union of disjoint events. Suppose you are having disjoint events, then the probability of the union of disjoint events, that is simply the sum of the corresponding probabilities. So if these three axioms are satisfied, any such function can be considered as a probability, a mathematical function that is known as a probability measure. That is the definition which was given by Kolmogorov. This actually gave sound mathematical basis for probability theory, and many results, many theorems, etc. Almost all theorems in probability theory are based on these three axioms. The whole theory of probability is actually, the mathematical theory of probability is based on the axiomatic approach of Kolmogorov. Now we will be coming to another one, that is actually quantum probability. So that was actually combining both the approaches, frequency approach as well as the measure approach of Kolmogorov, combining frequency approach of von Mises and the measure approach of Kolmogorov. So this was actually developed by von Neumann during the 1930s itself, and this has been used by physics people, statistical physics people, for developing quantum mechanics. So for laying the foundations of quantum theory in quantum mechanics. So quantum theory, they actually make use of these two principles, that is the frequency approach as well as the axiomatic approach, to define a no classical probability theory, incorporating non-commutative measure theory by von Neumann in the early 30s. So that is actually quantum probability. That is something like quantum mechanics. Some quantum logic is there actually. So I am not discussing much about this. So this is usually restricted to statistical physics, quantum mechanics, etc. But quantum mathematics is also now, quantum computing is also now, there also this quantum probability is widely used nowadays. Now another is actually the subjective approach. Subjective approach was actually due to a Presbyterian priest, Reverend Thomas Bayes. So he had actually developed it in 1763, and it is called the Bayesian approach. It uses information from prior data. So you have previous data, previous information, prior data, and the information from sample. So along with that, for the present study, you take a sample. Then using this, you combine these to compute posterior probability. This is like something like post-mortem. So you just make use of some prior information. So suppose a person is dead, so then certainly the police come, police will get investigation from the relatives, from neighbors. So based on that, they are proceeding. So using that, so based on the post-mortem result also, they will be getting some information. So they will be coupling together. So they will be combining together the prior information and the sample information to compute posterior probability. So it is subjective actually, and depends on personal experience. So it may change person to person. That was actually the criticism faced by Bayes. A more experienced person may give more reliable person. So that is actually, suppose you go to a doctor, certainly the doctor may be giving a qualified doctor, a new doctor, and a very experienced doctor. Say a doctor having some 25 years of experience, he may be giving a more reliable prediction. He may be giving a more reliable diagnosis, you can say. Whereas a beginner may not give such a good diagnosis. That is actually the peculiarity. So with modern computational facilities, this approach is now widely used. It is used in disease diagnosis, criminal investigation, and many such situations. Actually, during Bayes' time, so even though he had actually developed this theory in 1763, at that time it was actually ridiculed as impracticable, as utopian. So subjective probability, this actually gives an estimate that reflects a person's opinion or best guess about whether an outcome will occur. So that is actually the thing. So that is personal actually. Subject to subject, it may change. So it is widely used in medicine, form the basis of a physician's opinion based on the information gained in the history and physical examination. When a patient is under consultation with the physician, the physician may ask about their past history, their parents, whether the parents are diabetic, whether they have some such problems in their family. So all those. Along with that, he will be conducting the physical examination and then combining both, and he will be arriving at a decision. So whether the patient has a specific disease. So that is actually, so make use of the prior information. Along with that, he is actually making use of the information from the physical examination of the patient. So combining these, so he is actually making a posterior assessment, you can say, and that is how the experiment is. So such estimate can be changed with the results of diagnostic procedures or more data. Suppose more tests are performed, so then you will be getting a more precise information, a more reliable information, a more reliable diagnosis. So more procedures you can impose, or X-rays and other tests, etc. So based on that, so the doctor can make a more correct or more reliable prediction, more reliable diagnosis. That is actually the speciality of subjective probability. So it is widely used in medical diagnosis. So as far as Reverend Thomas Bayes is concerned, so when Bayes actually presented his theorem in the Royal Statistical Society during 1736-37, and it received much criticism as utopian and impractical. So that was actually the history. So Bayes faced much criticism. So it was not at all accepted as something which is practicable. So even though they didn't find any problem or anything wrong with his theory, so they cannot accept it as something which can be useful. So they say it is utopian, they said it is impractical. Even then, some of the fellows, some of the members in the Royal Statistical Society, they actually were of the opinion that the result is somewhat sound in mathematics. So he was awarded Fellow of the Royal Statistical Society, that is the recognition. He was given the recognition or the title Fellow of the Royal Statistical Society in 1742, and his research findings were actually rediscovered and published only in 1763, after 3 years after his death. So he died in 1761. Only after 2 years, this was published actually. It received serious attention in the current literature or in the statistical literature only by 1960s. So with the advent of computers. So only by 1960, it was actually receiving serious attention. And nowadays, as far as statisticians are concerned, it is the Bayesian era or Bayesian inferences. It is the era of Bayesian inference. So in statistics, this Bayes result or Bayes theory, that is the subjective approach based on Bayes theorem, that has become more important, more. So any problem? Okay. So now we will be coming to fuzzy logic. So fuzzy logic or fuzzy mathematics is due to Sade, 1966. So fuzzy function measures the degree of vagueness. It lies between 0 and 1. It is something like membership function. So complete vagueness is indicated by 0, and clarity, complete clarity or complete absence of vagueness, that is indicated by 1. It is an extension of two-valued logic. So suppose you are asking a question whether there will be rain. So Redin, whether it is a heavy rain or a light rain, or what about that? So the degree of the intensity, that also to be measured. So it measures the degree of truth rather than true or false. So usually we are having two-valued logic. That is actually just 0 and 1. That is actually the two-valued logic. But when it comes to fuzzy logic, you are having any value in between 0 to 1. And that actually is represented by the degree of truth rather than true or false statements. So suppose you are having examples, say, when you say a person is tall, what is the meaning of tall? So whether he is 5 feet or 6 feet or more than 6 feet, so that is not clear. So there is, so if you say that is just a comparison between two persons, so he is taller than the other person, or a middle-aged man. So if you say this person is middle-aged, so at least the age, middle-aged, so you know, suppose a child is brought, a child of say 5 years, so he is not middle-aged, that is very clear. Suppose a person of 60 or 70 years is brought, so he is not middle-aged, that is clear. But in between, so middle-aged, whether it means 40 to 60 or 50 to 60 or 40 to 50, that is not clear. That is like, so rainy, it is rainy. So rainy means how much? So whether it is heavy rains whether it is light rains. That is not clear. So suppose you say this coffee is hot. So whether it is very hot, whether it is just hot for you. So suppose you are giving it the same coffee to 5 persons. Some persons may feel it very hot. Some persons may say it is just hot, only that much. So in that case, there is vagueness. So for measuring such vagueness, the degree of vagueness, we are actually making use of fuzzy logic. It is like looking at an aeroplane. Suppose the aeroplane is at a very far distance, then it is not clear. It is just like a point. Now suppose it is reaching nearer and nearer to you, then it will become clearer and clearer. So when it comes closer and closer, certainly it will become more clear. That is actually the speciality of fuzzy logic. So in order to measure that vagueness, we are actually making use of fuzzy logic. So coupled with the concepts of fuzzy logic, we are having fuzzy probability. So in fuzzy probability, along with probability, one has in mind a measure of fuzziness also. So that is actually a combination of probability and fuzziness. Oh, it is not just crisp probability. Crisp probability means exact probability. So it may be a probability range. Suppose you say the fuzzy probability is 0.70. It does not mean that exactly it is 0.70. It may be something closer to 0.70, maybe in between 0.65 to 0.74. So that is actually the meaning of a fuzzy probability. A fuzzy probability is actually something which is in an interval. It depends on the degree of truth based on the data. It differentiates between the levels of truth. That is the speciality of fuzzy probability. So fuzzy probability is not clear, but it along with that, so we are having some idea about the vagueness, the degree of vagueness. That is the importance of fuzzy probability. Nowadays, fuzzy probability is also widely used. So fuzzy probability versus crisp probability. The probability that a fair die will show 6 is 1 by 6. Suppose you are having a die having 6 faces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then the probability that the fair die will show 6 is 1 out of 6. This is known as crisp probability, exact probability. So all mathematicians, all people will agree on this exact number. But suppose you say about the probability for rain tomorrow is 0.70. Whether it exactly means there will be 70% chance for, exactly 70% chance for rain tomorrow, it may not happen. It may not be the meaning. So 70% chance is there, that actually means that there is some very strong chance for rain. So it may be between some 60 to 80 or 65 to 75, etc. That is the meaning of a fuzzy probability. So using the same weather data, suppose a meteorologist may be saying that it is 20%. Another expert may say it is 75%. Another person may say it is 69% only. So that variation is possible in the case of fuzzy probability. So it depends on the strength of the data. Suppose you are having adequate data, then certainly you can make very good. So what you can say, so you can compute the probability, the fuzzy probability somewhat more exactly, and that will give you a more good idea or a more exact idea, you can say. So this is, these are actually the different types of probability. So we have considered the classical definition, that is the mathematical definition, then a practical way, that is the frequency approach, then the mathematically perfect, that is the axiomatic approach, that is the measure approach, then comes the Bayesian approach, or that is the personal, that is depending on individual to individual, subjective approach, then comes the fuzzy probability, certainly in between the quantum probability is also there. So these are actually 5 or 6 different approaches to measuring probability. Now, another concept I am coming to, that is actually the conditional probability. Conditional probability is exactly the probability, but it actually makes use of some information. So it is actually probability for A given B, that slash line, that actually means given that B has happened, given that something has happened, it helps to make a more reliable value using additional information. So just like, so you are given some information. So the Bayes approach is actually a conditional probability. So Bayes also make use of some prior information. So Bayes approach is based on conditional probability utilizing prior information. Suppose you are asked to give a probability for rain tomorrow. So given, suppose you are given some information, it is July, August. So during July, August, Suppose you are an unknown person to the locality. If it is July, August, there is a high chance for for rain. So given that information, you can make a more accurate, a more reliable prediction. That is actually the situation. That is actually the help, or that is actually the purpose served by conditional probability. Conditional probability actually makes use of some events which have happened. So some additional information, just like this. So these are actually, this conditional probability is just a probability to actually make use of some additional information, only that much. That is the difference. So these are actually regarding the definitions of probability, or the approaches for measuring probability, measuring uncertainty, measuring randomness. So associate the uncertainty associated with random outcomes, random experiments, you can say. So for that, we are having different types of approaches, different equipments, you can say. One is better than the other. That is actually what you can say. You cannot say it is perfect. One is perfect. So that is actually the peculiarity. So that is the purpose served by all these definitions. Now I am coming to statistics. So what is statistics? So statistics is actually is making use of probability. So it is actually, so the usual definition for statistics is, it is a body of methods for making wide decisions in the face of uncertainty based on systematically collected data and calculated risk. For what for that actually we develop statistical models. So probability models, you can say. So the primary purpose is to make wise decisions, and the problem confronting us is uncertainty. And for that, actually what you do is you make use of data, statistical data, and along with that you will be giving some probability statements, 90%, 20%, 5%. So that is actually what you mean by the calculated risk involved in that decision or that conclusion. So that is actually statistics. Statistics is for making wide decisions in the face of uncertainty based on systematically collected data and calculated risk. So for that, actually, we like to develop statistical models. So the father of statistics, the science of statistics, is Carl Pearson, who developed this. So he is actually concerned with model building, etc. What are models? So what is the purpose of science? So in many of the experiments, so the whole science is to deal with the models, to develop models for representing reality. The very purpose is to uncover the secrets of the nature, the secrets of truth. So that is actually, so it is actually a travel for truth actually. So a search for truth. So for that actually what you do, so we are developing models. So scientific study is to search for better models of reality. Scientific research is to find a better model for reality. A model is a description of reality. So models are not equal to reality. That also would be remember. Models are not equal to reality. So that is actually one thing which you have to remember. So no model is equal to reality. So it usually is a simplification. It is the primary purpose is to help understand reality. So the famous statistician Box says all models are wrong, but some are useful. So most of the models are wrong, but many of them are useful. The suitability and complexity of models can depend on the purpose, or that is the, what is the purpose, whether it is for predicting, so the climate, predicting the disease propagation. So that purpose, that way, it has got a purpose, then it will be suitable. That is exactly. So in some situations, it may be more complex. It is good when it is close to reality. So that is what we can say regarding a model. So coming to models, so this is actually a chemical model. So how atoms are distributed. So it actually means the configuration of atom, neutrons, protons, positive and negative. So this is actually an atomic model. Another is actually another model. This is a model for an aircraft, a spacecraft or an aeroplane. So some such model. So based on that model, you are actually developing the machine or the instrument. So this the Google map is also a model. Suppose you want to go to Cochin. So in that case, you have to go to a particular place. So you are actually following this Google map. So certainly sometimes you may be having some mistakes. So you may be going through the another, you may be misled. So that may be the situation. So the Google map, even though it is helpful, it may not give the exact picture. Suppose you are route is a little bit maybe violated or maybe deviated actually. So that is actually the peculiarity of models. Models are, when it is very close to reality, certainly it is best. Otherwise, you cannot say it is better. So it performance. Suppose you predict too much, so much weather, so much rain in the next week. There may be a thunderstorm in the next week, and suppose it happens, certainly you will say your model was correct. Otherwise, you say your model is wrong. But our weather prediction, etc., are possible only with this type of models. So in physics, you have the ideal gas equation, PV equal to RT. That is a model for ideal gas equation. Then another, in economics, you have the demand law. So demand depends on price. So D equal to A plus BP, where D is the demand, P is the price. Then another model is actually consumption function. Consumption increases with income. So C is the consumption, Y that is actually the income. So here A and B are called the parameters. So the Keynesian model. So Keynesian model gives you just a very general representation, that is income is equal to consumption plus investment. So that is actually an equation which actually gives you the system in the economic system. So the total income that is equal to the consumption plus income plus maybe investment plus saving, you can say C plus I plus S, that also is possible. So some such simple models are there. Relation between age and height. Suppose you are a mathematician and you want to find the relation between age and height. So Y equal to A plus BS, that is represented by a line. So that is actually a model actually. So the production model in economics, you are having production model, Cobb-Delas production function, many production functions that will be a function of natural resources, labor, capital. So in such a situation, you are having a model. So you are having models in all sciences, in sciences as well as social sciences, everywhere you are having some models. So what is actually the concept? So anything can be modeled. That is actually what I want to say. Anything can be modeled. The model may not be very good. So my research, some researchers usually say my research system is complex and cannot be modeled. So that is a wrong conception. So you can model it. So certainly your model may not be a good one, certainly. So that the complexity of the situation may make it not possible. Not possible means may make it somewhat not very accurate. So the thoughts about how a system works produce a model. So if you are actually conducting your research, if you are studying the situation very clearly, then you can obtain a model, you can produce a model. In science, mathematics is a common language used to express these thoughts as models. So it will be in terms of mathematical equations, etc. So the mathematical models have variables and parameters. So our usual mathematical models, we are having different entities called variables and parameters. Variables means something which will change. It is just like height, weight, age, BP level. So these are actually variables. Price for an economist, price, demand, supply, etc. are variables. So speed of a vehicle, that is a variable. So whereas in the case of statistical models, you are having random variables. So in the case of a statistical model, so we are actually making use of random variables. A random variable is some measurable function, so which is actually defined over the sample space. So I am not giving too much. So there are two types of random variables, two types of variables. One is discrete and the other is continuous. Discrete means something which is exactly measurable. So like number of children, number of persons affected by a particular disease, etc. Whereas continuous random variable, that is actually the weight. Weight is not exactly measurable. The speed, that is not exactly measurable. It is actually in an interval. So that is actually a continuum. Continuous random variables, discrete random variables and continuous random. So if it is discrete, then the probability you can exactly define is equal to probability x equal to x. Whereas continuous case, you will be considering only an interval, fx into delta x. That will be the probability that the random variable lies between x and x plus delta x. So that is actually, these are actually some technical terms. So the cumulative distribution function CDF, that is the probability that x is less than or equal to x. X is at the most equal to x. So the flood level may be at the most equal to this. The temperature may be at the most equal to this value. So in such situations, actually, you will be making use of CDF, the cumulative distribution functions. So for examples of random variables, so we are having different examples of random variables. The number of children in a family, that is a discrete random variable. The income and consumption in a month, it is actually a continuous random variable. The clutch size, the number of eggs in each nest box, that is a discrete thing, number. that is a discrete thing. Life length of a bulb, that is actually a continuous random variable. The weight of a newborn baby, that is continuous. The amount of rainfall, that is continuous. The number of deaths due to COVID, that is actually discrete. So usually number, that is discrete. So many of the cases, so if you are having number, some labeling, 0, 1, etc., that is actually discrete. Whereas in the case of rainfall, in the case of weight, in the case of income, etc., we are having continuous random variables. So for describing this, the behavior of these continuous random variables, so we will be actually making use of probability distributions or probability models. There are different types of probability models. So I am not giving too much details. So as far as there are different types of probability models. For dichotomous situations, you can make use of binomial distribution. For rare situations, for rare events like printing mistakes, etc., you can make use of Poisson distribution. Then for lifetimes, you can make use of exponential distribution. So for most of the situations, most of the data, continuous data, you can make use of normal distribution. For income data, you can make use of log normal distribution. These are actually probability models. So you just remember there are probability models. So for describing the behavior of random variables, you have probability models. Now, as I have already said, so any probability model or any model that will contain variables as well as parameters. What is the purpose of parameters? Parameters, they are defining the model properties. So they are approximating metrics. So in statistics, usually they are unknown and to be estimated. So they are just a parameter. Actually, that means some measurement. So for example, an example for parameter is actually the average value or the variance. All these are actually parameters. So in the case of say some disease growth, the growth rate, that is a parameter. The carrying capacity, so that is actually a parameter. The regeneration factor, that is a parameter actually. So that is actually the definition or the understanding of parameters. So any model may consist of variables as well as parameters. Parameters are not variables. So they are actually something which is characteristic about the model. So they actually describe the specialities of the model. So that is actually what you have to remember. So now variables versus parameters. Important to distinguish between variables and parameters. So in a linear regression model, so I am coming to some statistical models. In a linear regression model, y equal to a plus bxi plus epsilon I. So in that case, so usually our assumption is epsilon i's are following a normal distribution. So here a and b are actually parameters, and the variance sigma square, that is a parameter. Whereas yi, xi and epsilon I, yi that is the variable, xi is the variable, epsilon I that is the error term or the innovation term. That is, these are actually variables. So in a statistical model or in a stochastic model, you can say there are variables as well as parameters. Now we'll be coming to another situation. So in many of the regression problems, so you are having y equal to a plus bxi. If that is the case, so usually mathematicians take that way. So in that case, that is actually deterministic. Now, in the case of a statistician, so you will be assuming it to have some epsilon I also, a plus bxi plus epsilon I. That is, we cannot predict completely. So we cannot say completely. So suppose for a disease, for COVID disease, suppose you are developing a mathematical model, what mathematician assumes is everything is mathematically predictable. But statisticians say there are some uncertainties, some randomness. So that is actually incorporated, so that randomness is also there. So that is actually the speciality between a mathematical model and a stochastic model. In the case of a mathematical model, it is predictable, it is totally predictable, it is exact. But in a statistical model, so we impose the condition of some random errors, some random components. That is actually the peculiarity. So as far as an empirical modeling is considered, so usually for empirical modeling, so it is actually data driven. So most of our empirical models are data driven. So that is actually making use of statistical techniques, by calculations, probabilistic nature, short-term projections only. We cannot predict for an year. We cannot predict the number of COVID patients for an year. So we can just predict for 1 week. That may be correct. Otherwise, it may be going to be correct. So it depends on the dynamics of the situation, the dynamics of the population, dynamics of the parental population, etc. So for developing a model, in general, we can say there are 7 to 10 steps. So model development steps. So in developing a model, So you will start with the identification of the problem. So you have to identify the problem. What is the problem? Suppose you are developing a model for COVID patients in Kerala. That is one problem. Suppose you are developing a model for COVID patients in India. That is a more general problem. So that is like the situation. So identify the problem. Then you just conduct a review of literature and identify gaps. So review of literature means past publications, books, the theory, etc. So all those things you review and you find some gaps. Then you formulate your hypothesis. Then you collect the data. So having collected the data, you develop the mathematical model or the statistical model and solve it to find the solution. So once you formulate the hypothesis and make use of the data, you can develop the mathematical model or the statistical model, and you can solve it and you can find the solution mathematically. Then that mathematical solution is to be interpreted, and that is to be diagnostically checked whether it is correct or not, whether it is valid as far as the past data is considered. At least for the past data, you just validate it. So comparison with observed values, model validation is done. So after model validation, if it is good, if it is found to be in agreement, then you can go to report writing, then presentations, publications, etc. So that is actually the way in which you are actually developing a model. I will just consider modeling in epidemiology. So for epidemiology means disease modeling actually. So since it is COVID time, I'm just considering such a situation, just for example. So the study of the distribution, the frequency, determinants of health problems, this is in human population, etc. And the purpose is actually to interpret and use health information to promote health and reduce disease incidence and its effect. Modeling the dynamics of COVID, dynamics of AIDS, etc. These are actually the problems in epidemiology, the dynamics of cancer growth. So for all that, so you are developing this model. Then we are coming to the key questions for solving the health problems. So these are actually the questions. What is the health problem? Who are affected? Where does the problem occur? When does it happen? How does the health problem disease condition occur? So what are the reasons? So the factors affecting that. So all these are actually considered. So for that, actually, we are coming to the general dynamics of an epidemic. General dynamics means the individuals pass from one class to another. Says COVID growth itself. Suppose individuals cannot remain static. They will be making passive movements. Then the mathematical model tries to capture this flow using compartments. So for that, actually, so you will be considering something called a basic reproductive ratio in the case of COVID, in the case of this AIDS, in the case of influenza, etc. What is the basic reproductive ratio? How it is transmitted? That is actually the parameter which is actually of more interest. So it will determine whether the disease will progress, the speed of the disease, that determines the time to progress. Controlling the ratio parameter, we can control the disease. That is actually the truth. That is the scientific truth. That is why we are interested in finding the basic reproductive ratio. I'm just giving an example for these COVID patients. Suppose this is transmitted from one person to two persons, then from two to two more, then two to two, then R0 that is equal to 2. That is the peculiarity. That is actually how the reproductive ratio is equal to 2. Suppose the reproductive ratio is equal to 1.5. So in such a case, it is going to start from one person, then within 1 week, or maybe within a short period, it goes to another person. Then from that person, it goes to another person, and so on. So if it is 1.5, it is less severe. So whereas in the case of 2, it was a little more severe. So that is exactly. So having obtained this, so you are developing the mathematical model and you are arriving at some graphs, curves, etc. Then you can solve and you can find the solution. So that is how you will be arriving the solution. So this is actually what is done in mathematics or in statistics actually. So now you will be having, suppose you want to find relations. So for that actually you can make use of correlation regression studies. Correlation is actually measuring what about the quantity of relationship. So the degree of relationship, whereas regression actually gives the actual functional relationship. What is the form of functional relationship? So that is like thing. Then there are stochastic models called random walks, etc., which are widely used in physics, which are used in economics. Random walk, that is actually the present value. That depends on the past value plus some error, some innovation, you can say. So that is actually, and another is actually Poisson process and so on. Then we'll be coming to birth-death process. So All these will come to, so birth-death process, that is actually some model, so which are widely used in statistics. So these are actually models for queues, bank transactions, this transportation. So there are input also as output. A birth means actually an input, output means a death. So in the case of queues, in the case of opening an account in a bank, that is actually like a birth. Closing of account, that is like a death. So that way, so computer operations, input, output is there. So in all such situations, you have some models. I am not going to details. So here, some other models, then branching models. All these are actually models for describing about population growth and so on. Brownian motion process in physics, that is a model. Then for insurance, you are making use of insurance claim models, compound models, and many such models, time series models for predicting weather and so on. So many models are there. Now I will be coming to another situation. This is known as lady testing the tea experiment. That is a classical model, classical example. So the problem is actually, so suppose at afternoon, so in Cambridge, so an afternoon tea party at the university. So the lady, there was a lady, she was telling, I can tell whether the milk is poured first and the tea is added next, or whether the tea is poured first and the milk is added to the tea. So whether tea is added to tea or tea is added to milk. That was the problem. So it's a very simple problem. Suppose you are given, you are taking milk, whether tea is added to milk or milk is added to tea. So in that case, this actually led to one of the classical theories, development of classical theories like design of experiments. So that was the problem. So R.A. Fisher interfered. So he actually brought the principles of randomization, replication, etc. So he actually, so that's why the lady was actually posing the question very simply. But R.A. Fisher was there, he actually attacked it statistically. So what he did, he made a number of cups of tea, where in some tea was added to milk, in some others milk was added to tea. So suppose you just try 1 cup, there is 50% chance for correctness. So if there is only 1 cup, there is 50% chance to say whether it is correct or correctly you can say. Now suppose you have 4 cups, then the chance actually deviates between 25% for 0, for 1 maybe, one of them true with 50% chance, 2 maybe correctly said with 25% chance. So chance actually differs. So if you are having more, suppose, so actually what happened is this R.A. Fisher actually prepared 8 cups of tea, 4 cups with the tea first and 4 cups with the milk first. So that actually helped the lady. That actually was a posing problem. So it is actually 1/2 raised to 8. So for none of them to be correct, for all of them to be correct, it is 1/2 raised to 8. So in between you are having binomial distribution actually. So a number of cups of tea. So that actually, so this is actually a basic principle of conducting experiments. So you have to conduct a number of experiments. You have to replicate, then only you can find the variability. That is important. So randomness is there. So once you have randomness only, you can make use of probability. So probability modeling can be done only with randomness. So the variation is needed. So if you are having only 1 cup of tea, there is no variation. So there is no variation. So that is everything. So now we will be coming to the statistical study in the new era. In the new era, the present era, the raw material of a statistician is data, and the present era is that of big data. That is actually the peculiarity. So in the present era, we are having big data. It is not systematically collected. So the data which we get is not according to the prescriptions of a statistician. Systematically collected, but it contains information. So any data will contain information. So you have to take that information. So that is everything. So data warehousing and data mining necessary. So people are, or suppose you are getting emails. So these emails are actually being examined by Google. So your WhatsApp messages, your Facebook postings, all of them are actually being viewed. They are also containing some information. They are not statistically perfect, but we have to draw information, we have to derive information from them. So data warehousing and data mining are actually the essential tools. That is at the present, and computer programs are needed. Data quality is also important. So if you want to get a valid conclusion, certainly data quality is important. So for that, actually, what the present day statisticians say, data cleaning is essential. So this actually led to what you mean by data science. So the term data science actually appeared in 1970s. And this Peter Knorr defines data science as the science of dealing with data. So for him, it is the science of dealing with data. So now we are slowly coming to data science. So with data, so dealing with data actually implies some more things. Dealing with data includes all of the process, cleaning, processing, storing, and manipulating of data. So deriving information. For that, actually, you have to clean the data, you have to process the data, you have to store, then you have to manipulate, you have to analyze, and so on before data is analyzed, and the subsequent statistical analysis. So the arrival of the personal computer, then our mobiles, all this actually manipulated, or all of this actually are revolutionized. So large scale computing is now possible. So that is actually the picture. So it can be argued that data science is simply a response to this new technology. So many people say a data scientist is a statistician who lives in San Francisco. There actually these computer programs, software programs, etc. are being developed. It's actually the headquarters of Google actually. So data science is statistics on a machine. So that is actually many statisticians say it is actually statistics on a machine. A data scientist is someone who is better at statistics than any software engineer, and better at software engineering than any statistician. That is actually usually what statisticians or many people say. Data science should be a good statistician and software engineer. That is actually what I want to say. So several factors prompted these innovations. First, people needed to work with the database, data sets, which now we call big data. So actually, this was actually the problem. So now we have big data, which are larger than pre-computational statisticians would have imagined. Second, industry focused increasingly on making predictions about market trends and consumer or customer behavior, consumer behavior, etc. So these are being watched, these are being observed, these are being considered for making a policy decision. The inventors of data science borrowed from statistics, machine learning, database management, etc. to create a whole new set of tools for those working with the data. Statistics has not much changed, or it has to change significantly. That is actually so the field continues to emphasize theory rather than statistical computing, deep learning, etc. Deep learning of the data is needed. For that actually, so we need to modify our statistics, and that actually led to this data science, you can say. So you can see healthcare with the data science and analytics. So you can just analyze this on the computer itself. So having you have received the information, you send it to a doctor working in America, US lab, then he will actually give the advice. So that is it. So how Intel and Oregon health science universities are working to sequence a patient's DNA, that is genetical corrections. So some such type of disease curing that is also being happening nowadays actually. So that's actually how this data science is being used. So for that is clear. So you are making use of data. Now people have understood the importance of power and value of data. And for that, data mining techniques have been developed, and many statistical principles are being used. These are actually some statistical principles: cluster analysis, classification, discriminant analysis. All these are actually some statistical principles which are being used by these data science people. So statisticians reduce disease and improve medicines. That is actually gene sequencing, etc. They are studying about gene sequences. Millions of data is there. Then another is actually so optimizing manufacturing. So you need not go to the paint factory. You not go to the shop. You can just simulate, and based on that you can, so even for dress making, etc. These fabrics. So costume industry, there also you can make use of your statistical techniques of simulation and so on. Then statistics is widely used in sports to study about the behavior of a sportsman, how he will reflect or how he will react. So that is like the style of his play. Another is actually policy making. So how you can target the voters. So this is how. So what is like the mind? What is in the mind of the voter? How you can influence him? So for that, actually, the data science is actually being used. Another is actually artificial intelligence. So how you can recognize speech. So for that, artificial intelligence is being used. Another is actually quality. So for that, making industry, financial institutions, etc., they are actually making use of statistics to derive the results. This is actually to find Earth's natural resources. Where is petroleum? What are the deposits? What are the mineral deposits in a particular place? So how? So that is actually the thing. So for that, actually, this data science is widely being used. Data mining techniques are to be used. So now statistics or data science is being used in a large number of areas: biostatistics, epidemiology, market research, actuarial science, insurance, business analytics, commerce, industry, management, medicine, all the space research, remote sensing, statistical physics. All these are actually areas where statistical data science and data analytics are being used. Now, in the present era, we always hear about big data, data science, data analytics. So many of you listening me, you may be having this doubt whether data science and analytics are the new brand names for the new names for statistics, whether these are the same as statistics. Many statisticians say these are the same, but with a little bit difference. But what is actually the thing? So whether data mining, data warehousing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, etc., whether these are the same things or whether these are just new brand names for statistics. Actually, it is not. So data wisdom is a rebranding of all aspects of applied statistics. So data wisdom is important. Data wisdom means observing the data itself, we can gather the information. So just like an experienced doctor, so on the site of the patient itself, he can identify the disease. Most of the disease he can. So that is actually the thing. Advancements in computational statistics has revolutionized statistical thinking. So statistical thinking has been revolutionized. So that is actually something which you have to develop. Then it has become the backbone of data science. So statistical computing, then statistical wisdom or data wisdom. These are the backbones of data science. So now once again, I will come back to statistics. What is statistics? Statistics is the science of learning from data. It helps to make wise decisions in the face of uncertainty. And now we are facing new challenges due to big data. So that is actually what is actually the real fact. We are facing new challenges due to big data. So for that, actually, we have to change. So in 2015, the president of the Royal Statistical Society made a speech before the Royal Statistical Society. He called statistics as the data science for the 21st century. So statistics as data science for the 21st century. That is what, before some 5 years back in 2015, Professor Peter Diggin has said, it is actually, statistics is going to be the data science for the 21st century. So it's actually, so we are having the 50 years of data science. Data science is not very new. It has been there, it has been emerging for the last 50 years. So in 2016, they were celebrating 50 years of data science. So they are saying, so all the statistical techniques, along with the developments in communications engineering, along with the developments in this computer science, all those actually contributed to data science for the emergence or for the development of data science. So I will be concluding with the definition of data science. What is data science? Data science is an interdisciplinary field that uses scientific methods, processes, algorithms, and systems to extract knowledge and insights from many structured and unstructured data. Data science is related to data mining, machine learning, big data. So data science is an emerging discipline. We cannot say it has come complete. It has developed. It is an emerging discipline. It is being emerged. It is an emerging discipline to unify statistics, data analysis, machine learning, domain knowledge, and their related methods in order to understand the data for deep learning. Deep learning of the data. That is actually the important thing. So for deep learning of the data, so we have to make use of, we have to unify statistics, data analysis, machine learning, domain knowledge, and related methods. So for that, actually, we have to make use of various areas. So it is actually like a fourth paradigm. Just like Einstein said, time is also a factor. So it is a fourth paradigm. So it uses techniques and theories drawn from many fields within the context of mathematics, statistics, computer science, domain knowledge, information science, etc. So Jim Gray, he was a famous data analyst, data scientist. So he says data science as a fourth paradigm of science: empirical, theoretical, computational, and now data-driven. So it is not empirically, not just empirical, not just theoretical, not just computation. So statisticians were up to that level. So empirical, theoretical, and computation, that was the statisticians' prod. So now engineering also has, communication engineering has also come in. Engineering, computer science also has come, and that is actually data-driven. And asserted that everything about science is changing because of the impact of information technology and data deluge. Data has become powerful. I will conclude with just one more slide, one or two slides. So data quality, that is actually more important. Cleaning and transformation. For that, actually, you are having sources of data, then data extraction is there, data transformation is, then data loading, then the target data is there. So most of the time, data scientists are actually making use of this. And then comes the typical architecture. So that is actually, you are having sources of data, then data extraction, data transformation, human knowledge is also there. You can make use of these, then data analysis, then dictionaries, all those things will come. So even languages, you can convert into data. So even speeches, you can convert into data. So from all these actually, so these are actually metadata. From all these, so we can obtain valid conclusions. So we are concluding. So we conclude as follows. Statistics is the study of the collection, analysis, interpretation, presentation, and organization of data for making wise decisions. Information science is an interdisciplinary field, primarily concerned with the analysis. And coming to data science. Data science is, yes, I'm concluding. So data science is the extraction of knowledge from data. Data science.
We can hear, sir. We can hear. Kaka. Yes.
Data science is the extraction of knowledge from data. It employs techniques and theories drawn from many fields within the broad areas of mathematics, many fields within the broad areas, statistics, computer science, and so finally concluding, data science is the extraction of knowledge from data. It actually makes use of results from many techniques and theories from many fields, not just one or two. So in the broad areas of mathematics, statistics, computer science, information technology, and more and more. Now I conclude, data is powerful. Now the present era is data-driven era. Better data, better lives. That is actually the slogan of statisticians. Better data, better lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kekejos, for your very wonderful exposition. In fact, you have delineated the historical trajectory of the development of statistics from the fundamental concepts up to the contemporary times with a specific reference to data science, and you have affirmed the present era is a data-driven era. I think we have good many food for thought. You know, as I've rightly pointed out at the outset of this program, that Libby Science Talks aims at interdisciplinarity or promoting interdisciplinary approaches in the academic horizons. Statistics, through this presentation, Dr. Kekejos has affirmed and clarified how statistics can encompass very many other disciplines and what are the applications in the diverse fields of science and technology. Thank you so much. A million thanks, Dr. Kekejos. Now the floor is open for a discussion. It's open and over to the members, the participants of this particular seminar. You are welcome to propose your comments, suggestions, clarifications, and questions. Kindly be brief. Thank you. Those who would like to give any comments, you may just unmute and you may ask questions. Or you can even send messages. Okay. Hello.
I have one question.
Yes.
Sir, first of all, I congratulate you for your wonderful, excellent presentation. And my question is, data, how can we develop data wisdom? Can we apply this data wisdom to chemical sciences, especially for the structural analysis or the structural elucidation of compounds?
So as far as data wisdom, as you know, as far as data wisdom is considered, so now what is actually happening is, along with our statistical methodology, statistical techniques, so we are making use of some concepts from computer engineering. So we are making use of machine learning. We are making use of artificial intelligence. These are actually, so using this, certainly if I have to solve, I have to give an answer to a chemical situation. Certainly I have to go deep into the chemical reactions and so on. So that is also needed. So for that, actually, it is a challenging job. For the future, we can say what will happen.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. The next one. Okay, I see a particular message here from Nina Joseph. It was fabulous. Congratulations to Dr. Kekejos. She suggests to have a full-fledged course in mathematics and statistics for those who are thinking of doing research in social sciences.